Hello and welcome back to Tag1 Team Talks, our amazing series here at Tag1 Consulting about emerging web technologies. This week, we're talking about Drupal 7 end of life with Tag1 Quo. I'm Preston So, editor-in-chief of Tag1 Consulting. I'm here joining you from New York City. And I'm joined today by two of my dear friends and colleagues, Jeremy Andrews, who's located in the beautiful Toscana, Italia, founder and CEO of Tag1. Also, Michael Meyers, who's joining us from the Berkshires, Massachusetts, another beautiful part of the country, managing director of Tag1. And this is the final part, the third part of our three-part series about Drupal 7 end of life with Tag1 Quo. In case you missed it, check out our first two installments. Part 1 was about exactly what Drupal 7 end of life involves. Part 2 was about how Tag1 Quo can help you with its Drupal 7 extended support program. And now we're going to be turning our attention to what exactly is the plan for the other end of life coming around the corner, which is Drupal 8. Michael, so what exactly is Drupal 8's end of life timeline, and when is it going to happen?
So Drupal 8 is an entirely different beast than Drupal 7. When Drupal 8 was released, the Drupal end of life policy was changed for many reasons. And, key among them is that Drupal 8 is the first version of Drupal to have major dependencies. So Drupal 7, its major dependency is PHP, but Drupal 8 is built on top of Symfony 3. And the problem is that, Symfony 3 isn't going to get any security updates after November 2021. And so given this, the Drupal community can't support Drupal 8 beyond November 2021 because we're not providing security patches and updates for Symfony as well. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But another thing is that historically, major versions of Drupal were basically two different platforms. So the difference between Drupal 7 and Drupal 8 is night and day. One is functional programming, one is object-oriented programming. They are two different platforms. And that also changed with Drupal 8, as does backwards compatibility. So the effort to migrate from 7 to 8 is huge. By comparison, the Drupal migration from 8 to 9 and 9 to 10 is going to be relatively easy and seamless. In fact, the initial release of Drupal 9 is just Drupal 8 with some code removed, essentially, some deprecated code. So it is, if you've been keeping your Drupal 8 site up to date, which, hopefully you have, so it's secure, really going from the last version of 8 to the first version of 9 should be relatively trivial. But given all of these things, while Drupal 7 extended support for Drupal 7 was extended 2 years from the initial date, we can't extend the Drupal 8 end of life because of these dependencies. And so the date was and is still going to be November 2021 for Drupal 8 end of life.
I think that's a very important thing to really emphasize. The Drupal 8 end of life is going to be very different from the timeline for Drupal 7. And obviously, a lot of folks are very interested in how exactly Drupal 8 will figure. And I think we need to talk a little bit about the difference between Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. I think all three of us have a very good sense of the fact that Drupal 8 really marked Drupal's getting off the island, picking up some of these other projects, getting on board with Symfony, and so on and so forth, Composer. So why exactly is it that Drupal 8's end of life is in some ways even more of a critical problem than Drupal 7's?
So Drupal 8 introduced, with Drupal 8, we introduced a big philosophical shift in the Drupal community. Historically, we did a lot of the heavy lifting and development ourselves. We did pull in some libraries, say, for JavaScript. But with Drupal 8, the community made the decision to, quote unquote, get off that self-contained island that was Drupal and to leverage other software packages to make Drupal better. And so, I mentioned Drupal 8 is built on top of Symfony. It uses Twig and Guzzle in very meaningful ways. And the result of this is that, the sum of the whole is greater than its parts. Drupal 8 is awesome because it has all of these advanced innovative technologies and it continues to introduce them. But that also, creates problems because of the dependencies on each of these systems that have their own development cycles and end of life. And so, the example I gave earlier, Symfony 3 doesn't get security patches after 2021. there really is no viable way to continue to support Drupal 8 after that. We as a community could fork Symfony 3 and provide our own coverages and updates for it, but that's a tremendous amount of effort and requires a lot of expertise in Symfony to do that. And so it's a lot easier and more practical for us, especially given that ease of upgrade path that we talked about, to migrate Drupal to support Symfony 4. And so that is what the community is going to do. It's going to migrate to Symfony 4. And again, the difference between versions is vastly different with 7 and 8. So 8 adopt what's called semantic versioning. And there's a bunch of rules and requirements that dictate with semantic versioning how you number your releases. What's the difference between 8.2.1 and 8.3.1. And when a major update like Symfony, a major dependency like Symfony is going to require API changes to Drupal core. And when API changes happen, according to the rules of semantic versioning, you're required to have a new major release number. And so as a result, Drupal 8 becomes Drupal 9, 9 becomes 10. And so, really, the difference is so much different. The upgrade path is so much easier, but the major version numbers are going to accelerate much faster.
I think that's one of the things, the fact that we have, this new semantic versioning, the fact that we have all of these new changes that have come about. You mentioned Symfony 4 coming around the corner as well. One of the things that I think is really important for people to recognize, the fact that, Drupal 8's extended support program is going to look very, very different from the others that have come about before, with Drupal 6 LTS, as well as the Drupal 7 extended support program. We talked a lot about Drupal 7 extended support in both of the first two installments. What exactly is going to be, what is the Drupal 8 extended support program going to look like? And how is it going to differ from Drupal 6 and Drupal 7's programs?
That's easy. There is no Drupal 8 support. there is no Drupal 8 extended support. And that's, a very big difference. There's certainly no official Drupal 8 support being offered for the reasons that I mentioned. I think it's extremely unlikely that there's going to be unofficial Drupal 8 extended support offerings because of, reasons like Symfony, and it just cascades. Like, even if you can support Symfony 3, can you also support Twig? And, so it starts cascading more and more, which makes it, really impractical. Unless these communities, like if the Symfony 3 community decides to offer an extended support program, perhaps there's a way, that we can coordinate with them. And we are looking into that, and we're trying to see if we can make that happen at Tag1. But I don't want to get people too excited because of the complex nature of that and all the different dependencies. And so, providing Drupal 8 extended support is going to require a even different level of expertise than just providing, Drupal extended support itself. It's unlikely that anybody is going to be able to offer Drupal 8 extended support for all of these reasons, and it gets more and more complicated. It's not just, forking Symfony and providing Symfony 3 updates and security patches, but what about Twig and Guzzle and all the other dependencies? It just goes on and on and on. And so it's extremely challenging for anybody to be able to offer it. We're looking into this at Tag1, or, maybe other communities, like Symfony will provide Symfony 3 end of life extended support themselves, and we can coordinate with them, and that might position us and others to consider offering Drupal 8 extended support. But there is no official support program. It's unlikely that anybody is going to provide a Drupal 8 extended support program. And given that the effort and energy to upgrade from 8 to 9 is so easy, at least by comparison, that's where I think the focus is going to be. Organizations can get help from folks like Tag1 to upgrade their sites from 8 to 9. There just isn't going to be a big enough commercial market for Drupal 8 extended support, given the ease of upgrade. And so, the complexity, the lack of, commercial interest, please don't expect that there's going to be an extended support program. Plan to be upgrading your site, because we're about a year away.
I think it's really, one of the things that is really interesting about the fact that, there is no Drupal 8 extended support in the traditional sense is that I think that really reflects the new innovative stance that Drupal 9, 10, and so on and so forth are trying to take on, which is that, the upgrade path from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 is meant to be really, really painless, or at least as painless as possible. And same thing, of course, with future versions. But I think a lot of folks are very worried because, obviously, it's not, a trivial thing to move from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 or Drupal 8 to Drupal 10. If I do have a Drupal 8 site right now, which I do right now, should I be worried about this? I've been keeping in track with all the Drupal 8 security updates, but once Drupal 8 kind of goes away, should I be worried at all? Is there something that I should really be doing perhaps or thinking about?
Yeah, I really don't think you should be worrying, especially if you're, you've kept your site up to date, which again, everybody should. Again, historically, the upgrade from one major version of Drupal from 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, they were massive, heavy lifts. And so if you think, in a historic context, you think, wow, I'm on 8, it's going to be so challenging at 9. That isn't the case anymore. With 8, we introduce the easy ability to upgrade, and that's going to happen, moving forward. So you're in a really good position, unless you have not kept your site up to date. And again, it really, because Drupal 9 is just 8 deprecated code removed, it really shouldn't be too much of an effort to upgrade your site, even if you haven't kept it up to date. And, the same, you should expect the same from 9 to 10. So moving forward, migrations and upgrades are going to be easy. I would implore you, if you haven't, to keep your site up to date, with each release. There's so many reasons to do so, security, major bugs and functionality, latest innovations that you can benefit from, but also, making sure that, your upgrade path is seamless and smooth. And so, another thing to keep in mind is, the major releases of Drupal are going to happen faster and faster. So a few months ago, Dries announced that Drupal 10 is only 2 years away. And so, don't let the numbering scare you. It's different than it was historically. If you're on 8, it's going to be very easy for the most part and for most people to upgrade to 9 and from there to 10 and 11. So, don't let the numbers fool you. The only thing you should be worried about is the fact that you have a year to do it. And so, please don't wait. Get on top of things and make sure that you're planning, and that you understand the effort associated with it for your site so that you can be on 9 before 8 hits end of life in November of 21.
I think this is, one of the things that really kind of highlights, the fact that we've been talking for 3 episodes now of this series about long-term or extended support. But, one of the things that I think this new stance that Drupal has adopted really indicates is that we might be moving towards a future where there really might not be as much of a need for long-term support or extended support. That being said, of course, I think Tag1 will still very much be at the forefront, trailblazing, all of the kinds of things that we want to see when it comes to what those future versions of those programs might encompass in the future. So, alrighty, well, that's all the time we have, unfortunately. I want to thank you all so much for joining us for our 3rd and last installment of this 3-part series on extended support for Drupal 7 and Drupal 8 with Tag1 Quo. Please be sure to check out the other 2 installments of this series. Part 1 was about Drupal 7's end of life and what it means for you, what your options are. Part 2 was about, of course, the Drupal 7 extended support program and how Tag1 Quo really helps you to support your sites for many years to come. And of course, all the things that we mentioned today will be posted online with this talk. If you did enjoy this episode, please remember to upvote, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Check out our past talks at tag1.com/tagteamtalks. And as always, we want to hear from you about your ideas, about people you want to hear from or bring on the show. Feel free to email us with any of your topic suggestions or folks you want to see on the show at tag1consulting@tag1consulting.com. And I want to thank my friends and colleagues today, Michael Meyers and Jeremy Andrews, for a wonderful chat over the course of these last 3 episodes about Tag1 Quo and some of the awesome long-term support programs that are going to be available for Drupal 7 and not for Drupal 8, but Tag1 will have a story for that too in not very much time. So thank you so much, and we'll be back with more very soon in Tag1 Team Talks. Thank you so much, and see you next time.